So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do a bit of a foraging challenge. What you see behind me is 4 stakes, and each stake is about 3 paces apart, so 10 feet apart. And in that small area, what I want to do is try to harvest an entire meal. The caveat, of course, is that I've only got an hour to do it, because if I go any more than an hour, basically the calories I'm putting out and the calories I'm taking in, they kind of cancel each other out. So I want to harvest an entire meal from the back, be that plant material, bug protein, or any kind of nutrition that I can get out of the ground. So I'll just give you a quick look at the space that I've got here. It's just a typical forest floor space here. I've got my 4 stakes set up, as you can see, and just as I look outwardly at what I can see, I see there's a lot of options here. I've got some spruce in here, some juniper, I've got some rose hips here. As I go further into the box, I've got over here, I've got some buffalo berries that I can pick. I've got some fairy bell berries over here, and then I've also got a ton of these leafy greens. So I don't think I'll have an issue, filling my plate with what I see here, and that's just on the surface. I've also got a shovel that I can dig down, see if I can get some bugs, and any bug that comes into this area that I can catch, I can also eat them as well. So I'm going to get going here, get started on this. I've got 1 hour to get this done. Okay, I'll start with what's most abundant and the easiest thing to get, and that's these little dandelion leaves. They're all over the place. It's coming into the fall here in Alberta, so things are starting to dry out. These things typically get pretty bitter in the fall, but because they're in shade, they're in a shaded area, I think they'll be okay to eat. I just tasted a couple, they didn't taste too bad at all. So I'll make this as the base of my salad. These little red berries are some of my favorites. They're called buffalo berries, and they're a bit bitter. Actually, they taste like soap, and that's why the native people call them soap berries, because they actually use them as soap. But they're a bit bitter, but they actually have a lot of sugar in them, so they're going to be a nice bit of sweetener in this salad of mine. That, and they're pretty abundant as well. I could probably get, a full cup of berries just off of this one little bush here. These are called rose hips, wild rose hips, and they're really sweet. You can actually make syrup out of them, but they take a bit of processing. You got to just remove the seeds, or else you're getting an affliction called itchy bum, because they're covered in little bits of hair, which is easy. You just squish the seeds out, they come right out, and then what you're left with is the flesh of the actual hip. Just butchered that one, but what you're left with is the flesh of the actual hip, and it's super sweet, so it's a nice accent to the salad. Okay, these here are my favorite. These are called fairy bells, and these are very sweet. You can eat them raw or cooked. They're kind of rare to find. They're great bait for grouse or for baiting rodent traps, but if you can find them, take advantage and just eat them, because they're really rare, and they have such a nice sweet flavor to them. And I don't think I've ever stumbled onto 7 of them. So that's a nice find. And there's still lots of other, you can see I picked rose hips already. I'm not going to harvest everything in here. I mean, otherwise I won't be able to eat it all. I've only got the hour, but you can still see, I'm just taking off the surface. I'm not really even scratching the surface of this 10 by 10 area. Got a few little asters in here that I'm going to collect. I'm not going to use them for the salad, but I will throw them in my tea. There's another one there. I'll just leave it there. This will be more than enough. These have an astringent sort of effect, so these are actually good for tea. Put everything I want in my tea over here, and actually I might throw some of these rose hips in there as well. Just got a wee bit of carpet juniper in here that if you dig really deep, you can get the seeds. Not dig deep, but if you just flip over the limbs, you'll see the seeds. These are edible. You can eat them. They're a bit like pepper, I guess, the consistency, and then they have a real woody taste to them. I'm not going to actually throw them in the salad. I'm not going to waste them though. I'm going to throw them in my tea actually, because they're full of vitamin C, so they'll make a nice addition to the tea. I'm going to go ahead and add some of this moss to my salad mixture. Normally I wouldn't. Typically, it's more like a famine food than anything, but it is edible. Most people don't realize it's edible. I spent a lot of time working with the Inuit guys up in the Arctic when I was younger, doing survival stuff and hunting and trapping and things like that, and it was just the time of my life. And one of the things I learned from them is that they eat moss, they eat lichen and moss to augment their diet. There's not a lot of nutrition, but it does beef up your meal, and it does add some calories. So for the sake of this challenge, I'm not trying to harvest as much stuff as I can here just to show diversity. I'm going to go ahead and add this to my salad. I'm sure by now everybody's aware that spruce is a good, nutritious, four-season tree. I'm just going to use some of the ends of this little sapling for my tea. I don't want to take too much off them. It's just a nice bit of vitamin C to enrich the tea. There's not a lot of actual strawberries in here, but I can still use these strawberry leaves and roots even in my tea. So, oh, look at that. There's my first one there. My first grasshopper. Ah! They've been jumping around here, but I haven't had my hat to hit me. I just grabbed my hat to hit them. The thing when it's morning like this is that they're not very active, so they're hard to find. There's lots in here. He's not going anywhere, I don't think. There's another guy. There's another guy. They're beat up pretty good, so I don't think they're going anywhere. Okay, I've got 7 grasshoppers. Pretty good diversity of wild edible plants here. I'm kind of running out of time here. I got maybe 5 minutes left, so I'm just going to see what I can get from underneath the surface here. Okay, so we've got a couple of worms here. Looks like one there, 2. Actually, tons of worms in this area. Roots. So my challenge today was to try and forage an entire meal out of this 10 by 10 area behind me that I've got marked off in 1 hour. It was 1 hour, so I stopped foraging. Now there's still tons of edibles in here. It's just that because I only gave myself an hour, I'm not gonna bother picking them. But there's still lots of stuff in there that I could harvest if I took more time. Let's just quickly go over the stuff I've got here. As far as protein goes, my goal was to try and find a cup of bug protein. I didn't meet that goal because I didn't manage my time properly. In hindsight, I would have done it a little bit differently. These bugs didn't start moving around until about, basically until the end of the foraging challenge, because the sun was coming out, they were getting warm, they started moving around, and I was able to see them and swat them with my hat. Before that, I couldn't see them. They were there, but they just weren't moving around. So next time I would spend a lot more time getting bugs. I thought I'd get more bugs, but I didn't take into consideration that it was a cold morning. These earthworms, I basically turned over 2 pieces of sod. I was able to get 3 earthworms. So if I was to spend another 15 minutes harvesting bugs, I easily would have got that cup of bugs that I was shooting for, because that accounts for 60 grams of protein, roughly, which is a huge portion of your protein needs for the day. So that's a really untapped source for protein and calories, the bug world. Moving on here, let's look at what else we've got here for the salad. I've got these dandelion shoots coming into fall, like I said earlier, so they're probably a little bit bitter, but they'll still make a nice base for the salad. I've got this moss just for a bit of volume. And then as far as berries and flavor go, I've got these fairy berries, which are really good, hard to find. Like I said earlier, they're excellent for using as bait for rodents or for grouse. They just love them because they're a rarity for them, is just as they are for us. I've got these rose hips, which are so sweet you can make syrup out of. The only thing is you've got to de-seed these, which is easy. You just pop them open, push the seeds out, and then eat the flesh. So that's not a big deal. You can't eat the seeds. They'll give you a condition called itchy bum. They don't feel good coming out the other end. And here I've got some buffalo berries or soap berries. They taste a little bit bitter, but they're full of sugar and calories as well. They add a lot of color to that salad. As far as my tea goes, I've got some aster and some needles from a sapling spruce, and then I'm just going to add a couple of those rose hips as well. Some strawberry leaves just for flavor, because I couldn't find any strawberries, but that'll still work. There's still nutrition in them. And then I'll also add these juniper berries because they're packed with vitamin C. So that's my meal here. I'm going to go ahead, get everything processed down, prepped, get a fire going, cook these bugs up, and then have a nice dinner. What I'm going to do here while I just wait for this fire to mature is I'm just going to get all this stuff ready. So I'm going to start by cleaning all my greens here. And I'll just soak them in water, just like that. Save some water for the actual entree. Just soak them in water. It's always safe to clean everything. You know, and then once I'm happy with that, what I can do is I can take this water, clean off my bug protein, and then take the water again, recycle it, and put it into my tea, boil up, and have a nice cup of tea. Alright, make sure these bugs are nice and clean. And I don't mind having a little bit of dirt grit in my tea either, because it's kind of like everything we do in bushcraft, right? It's just kind of edgy. And then I'll take that water and I'll just pour it into my tea, and I'll cook my tea up in it. Right. So there's my bugs, cleaned off for the most part. I've got my tea almost done. I'm just going to get the remainder of the water out of here. Alright, good. So I'll put this on the fire to start brewing up right now. And once that gets going, I can actually start cooking my bugs.
those are just about ready. This is steeped enough here. Just gonna take that off, let it cool down a bit. Give those bugs a couple more minutes. They've only been on there for about 4 minutes. So. Okay, I think those bad boys are ready. Let them cool off for a minute. We'll start eating. Okay, here is the tea that I made, and as you can see, it's steeped really well. I'll try it out. It's actually pretty good. It does have a hint of strawberries, even though those were just leaves, so that's nice. And those juniper berries don't taste too strong though. And of course, the main course, the entree. So I'm just going to throw all the bugs in here. They're there, they're well done, as you can see. Probably seem better over there. I'll just put them on my main meal right like that. And we'll start eating. Do it. Okay, so there's the meal that I was able to forage in that 10 by 10 space in 1 hour. Got my bugs well done there, worms, grasshoppers, all the greens. Should be a good one. Should get lots of berries in there. Get a hint of those worms. They taste like they smell, you know, on a rainy day. But not bad. And the grasshoppers are just crunchy. They just taste actually really good. You see the grasshopper right there. It's the moss that's hard to swallow. It's very, very chewy. When you do a survival scenario, it may seem taboo to eat these wild edibles, these bugs and things like that on a normal day, but when you're out there in the bush, they are just calories. They are just energy, nothing else. You have to really swallow your pride in order to survive day by day out there. So that was my 10 by 10 1 hour foraging challenge in the books. One last piece of grasshopper there. There's a leg. There was a leg on there.